In the vast expanse of the galaxy, humanity stood at the precipice of a new age. For centuries, Earth had been isolated, unaware of the higher civilizations that thrived among the stars. Then, the first contact came, an invitation from the Zereth, a species of vast intelligence and unmatched technological prowess. They offered peace, knowledge, and the opportunity for cooperation. Humanity, in its youthful optimism, eagerly accepted. But the true nature of the Zereth was hidden beneath layers of diplomacy. Their invitation was not a gesture of friendship, it was a test. Earth's leaders had unknowingly walked into a galactic game where they were nothing more than pawns. The Zereth, along with their allies, the Shorii and the Theric, saw themselves as superior beings, each race centuries ahead of humanity in technology, knowledge, and culture. Their peace was a facade, an experiment to see how humanity would adapt to a galaxy ruled by these alien powers. In reality, humanity was being evaluated for one purpose: survival. The galactic warlords of the Zereth had been keeping their eyes on Earth for some time, curious about how a species so primitive could survive for so long. To the aliens, humanity was a puzzle. The key to understanding their place in the universe, and possibly an asset to be exploited or discarded. But humans were not the passive creatures the aliens believed. Beneath the surface of their newfound alliances, there was a fire, a survival instinct born of centuries of struggle, perseverance, and resilience. The Earth wasn't just a ball of rock and water. It was the cradle of a species that had fought its way to the top against every conceivable obstacle. That was something the Zereth, with all their intellect and technology, had underestimated. It was during one of these initial diplomatic exchanges that the first cracks began to show. A subtle disagreement erupted over a trade deal for rare earth minerals, something the Zereth prized above all else. The Shorii, seeing an opportunity to manipulate the situation, began to press their own agenda, suggesting that Earth's leaders were unfit to be part of the Galactic Council. The Theric, ever the opportunists, began to spread rumors about the true motivations of the Zereth, fueling the growing tension. In the midst of this, humanity's most brilliant minds, scientists, strategists, and military leaders began to realize the trap they had fallen into. The humans were being judged on more than just their diplomatic skills. Their every move, every decision, every failure and success was being closely monitored. The Zereth, in their arrogance, thought they could predict humanity's every move. But they had made one fatal mistake: they had underestimated human ingenuity. Dr. Evelyn Hayes, a leading astrophysicist, was the first to suspect something was wrong. Working late one night at the Earth Defense Command's secret research facility, she stumbled upon an encrypted transmission. It was meant for the Zereth's elite council but had been intercepted by a human satellite network. The message was cryptic, but the tone was clear. The Zereth were planning something, and humanity's survival was at stake. She shared her findings with General Marcus Quinn, head of Earth's military, and together they began to piece together the puzzle. They quickly realized the stakes were far higher than anyone had anticipated. Earth wasn't just being watched, it was being tested for something far darker, a war for survival against forces beyond their comprehension. The aliens had been observing humanity's ability to adapt, learn, and innovate. The question was not whether they were fit to join the Galactic Council, it was whether they could survive against alien civilizations who had long since mastered the art of war, manipulation, and control. As the truth began to sink in, a sense of urgency took hold. Dr. Hayes and General Quinn gathered a team of scientists, engineers, and military tacticians to devise a plan. But they weren't the only ones who had seen the cracks in the system. Earth's brightest minds began to communicate in secret, sharing their insights, their fears, and their plans to survive. The human edge wasn't just their technology, their resilience, or their ability to outlast. It was their cunning, an ability to think outside the box and turn the tide in ways the aliens never anticipated. The first step in their plan was clear: they had to send a message to the stars, not of submission, but of defiance. A message that would let the alien civilizations know that humanity was more than just a pawn in their games. They would fight for their place in the galaxy, and they would outsmart their superior opponents, no matter the cost. And so, the first phase of humanity's battle for survival began, a battle of wits and strategy against the overwhelming forces of alien powers. In this new age of cosmic conflict, humanity had no choice but to adapt, to outthink, and to fight back with everything they had. It was a struggle that would push the very limits of their intelligence, ingenuity, and determination. The stakes were higher than ever. The future of Earth was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was about to prove that the human edge was more than just a myth. It was their greatest weapon. The days that followed Dr. Evelyn Hayes' discovery of the Zaratha's cryptic message were filled with tension and fear. Earth's leadership, still unaware of the full scale of the threat, carried on with their diplomatic charades, unaware that the very foundation of their future was crumbling beneath them. Meanwhile, Hayes and General Marcus Quinn worked tirelessly behind the scenes, assembling a coalition of the brightest minds and most experienced strategists from around the globe. The first order of business was to assess their position. Humanity had no access to the advanced weaponry or starships that the alien civilizations boasted, and Earth's most sophisticated technology was laughable compared to the Zaratha's capabilities. The Zarath and their allies had long since mastered interstellar travel, advanced artificial intelligence, and combat techniques that humanity couldn't even begin to comprehend. It seemed like the perfect setup for a quick and easy conquest. But that was the flaw in the aliens' calculations: they had vastly underestimated humanity's ability to think outside the box. It was this fundamental trait that Dr. Hayes believed could be the key to their survival: human creativity. While the aliens had long relied on brute force, cold logic, and superior technology, they lacked the unpredictability and ingenuity that humans had cultivated over millennia. Hayes knew that their survival would not depend on matching the alien forces head-to-head. It would depend on something far more subtle: humanity's ability to outwit their foes. To fight not with strength, but with cunning. After months of secretive planning, Dr. Hayes and General Quinn assembled a group of engineers, scientists, and even former military commanders from across Earth's global defense forces. Their mission: to create a weapon that could stand against the Zaratha's technological superiority. It would not be a traditional weapon, nothing so simple as a missile or laser. This weapon would be the greatest human advantage: their minds. Their first task was to develop a system that could disrupt the Zaratha's advanced artificial intelligence networks. The Zarath relied heavily on AI for strategic planning, command and control, and even warfare simulations. If humanity could infiltrate and manipulate these systems, they would be able to create confusion and delay any alien plans, buying precious time to prepare a counterstrike. The team, led by Dr. Hayes, quickly made a breakthrough. Using quantum computing and cutting-edge encryption techniques, they developed a virus, one that could infiltrate alien AI systems with ease. It was dubbed the Ghost Protocol. Unlike anything the aliens had encountered before, the Ghost Protocol was designed not to destroy or disable their technology, but to subtly alter their decisions, disrupt their strategies, and create internal conflict within their ranks. The breakthrough was only the beginning. The team began working on a larger, more ambitious project: a human fleet. Earth's spacefaring abilities were limited to a few exploration vessels and an aging military fleet. The idea of standing up to the Zarath and their allies in a direct confrontation seemed absurd. But Quinn was undeterred. Using humanity's creativity, they began constructing a new type of vessel, one that wasn't built for combat, but for stealth. A ship designed to move undetected through the vastness of space, with a cloaking technology that had never been seen by the aliens. The ship's purpose wasn't to engage the enemy, but to serve as a platform for a daring mission: infiltrating Zarath-controlled space. But the real surprise came when they realized that the key to humanity's survival wasn't just in the creation of these weapons, but in the people who would use them. Unlike the highly disciplined, rigid alien races, humans thrived on chaos and adaptability. While the Zarath were bound by their intellect and cultural norms, humans were wild, unpredictable, and capable of operating outside the confines of any set rules or expectations. Dr. Hayes and General Quinn knew that their greatest weapon would be the human spirit, a force that no alien civilization had ever had to face. A force that could think, adapt, and improvise in ways the Zarath could never predict. As the team worked around the clock to complete their projects, they began recruiting individuals from across Earth: pilots, hackers, former soldiers, scientists, and engineers. People who had been trained in the art of survival. People who had lived through hardship and adversity. People who would stop at nothing to defend their home. The world was on the brink of war, and Earth's forces were still scattered and disorganized. But the seed of resistance had been planted, and with every passing day, humanity's chances of survival grew. The Ghost Protocol was perfected, the stealth ships were near completion, and a small but determined force of human soldiers and tacticians was preparing for the most daring operation ever attempted by mankind. It would be an assault not on alien weapons, but on alien confidence. A strike at the heart of the Zaratha's belief in their own superiority. The ultimate plan was simple: to show the aliens that humans were not to be underestimated, and that humanity would do whatever it took to survive. They would fight not with brute force, but with the one thing that no alien civilization could predict: the human mind. And soon, that mind would be unleashed, with consequences the galaxy had never seen before. The quiet hum of the stealth ship echoed through the darkened hangar as it was prepped for its maiden voyage. Codenamed Phantom, the vessel had been designed with one singular purpose: infiltration. Armed with the Ghost Protocol virus and the best human minds at the helm, the crew was ready to embark on their dangerous mission. General Marcus Quinn stood before the assembled team of pilots and engineers. His face, normally stern and unflinching, now showed a flicker of uncertainty. This was humanity's first strike in a war they had not yet fully comprehended. The stakes could not have been higher. "We don't know what we're going up against," Quinn began, his voice steady but his eyes sharp. "The Zarath think they're untouchable. But if we succeed in this mission, we hit them where it counts, in their arrogance. We won't engage them in open combat, and we won't try to match their superior firepower. We will strike at their command centers. We will cripple their ability to make decisions." Dr. Evelyn Hayes, standing by Quinn's side, added, "Our Ghost Protocol virus is designed to subtly alter the Zaratha's AI systems, disrupting their decision-making process. It's not a weapon of destruction, it's a weapon of confusion. If we can manage to infiltrate their command ships, we can sow chaos. Chaos gives us a chance." A tense silence filled the hangar. The human crew, carefully chosen for their ingenuity, looked to their leaders with a mixture of determination and apprehension. No one truly knew what lay ahead. The Zarath had been in control of galactic space for centuries, and they held the upper hand in every measurable way. Yet, humanity's greatest advantage was their ability to adapt, improvise, and never give up. They would need all of that and more in the days ahead. The Phantom was a sleek, ghostly ship, no larger than a small shuttle, but its design was far more advanced than anything Earth had produced before. Its hull was coated with a cloaking material capable of rendering it almost invisible to the most advanced alien detection systems. Its engines, though primitive by Zarath standards, were enhanced with human ingenuity to avoid the telltale signs of traditional propulsion, ensuring that it could slip through enemy territory undetected. The first phase of their plan was simple: infiltrate a Zarath-controlled space station orbiting a nearby star. This station was a hub of activity, coordinating the movements of several alien fleets. It housed critical communications, intelligence, and AI systems that governed the Zaratha's operations. If the humans could breach it without being detected, they could introduce the Ghost Protocol into the station's AI, disrupting the flow of orders and creating confusion in Zarath ranks. As the Phantom launched from Earth's orbit, its crew held their breath, knowing this was the most dangerous part of their mission. They would have to fly through an expanse of space littered with enemy patrols and automated defense systems. Any wrong move, any slip-up, and they'd be detected. And if that happened, it would be the end of them. For hours, the ship glided silently through the void, avoiding enemy sensors with precision. The human crew worked in quiet synchronization, each member performing their duties with the focused calm of someone facing certain death. Quinn and Hayes observed the approaching station from the cockpit, eyes locked on their objective. 5 minutes to the station, whispered Lieutenant Sarah Kingston, the ship's lead pilot, her fingers dancing across the control panel. entering detection range in 30 seconds. The tension in the ship was palpable. Every member of the crew was acutely aware of the stakes. If they failed, they would be the first humans to directly challenge the Zereth, and their deaths would send a clear message to the rest of humanity: resistance was futile. But if they succeeded? "Deploy cloaking," Quinn ordered, his voice firm. The Phantom shuddered slightly as the cloaking field enveloped it, making the ship virtually invisible to any sensors. They had only a few minutes to slip past the station's defenses and land inside its docking bay without detection. The crew's breathing slowed as they approached. The space station loomed ahead, a massive structure of gleaming metal and alien architecture. It was a hive of activity, and from its core, the Zereth controlled vast swathes of the galaxy. The Phantom had to be perfect. "Ready to deploy Ghost Protocol," Dr. Hayes said, her fingers poised over the control panel that would trigger the virus once they entered the heart of the station. Kingston guided the ship closer, keeping her eyes fixed on the incoming docking bay. The station's automated security systems scanned the area, unaware of the tiny ship's approach. With a breathless tension that seemed to stretch time, the Phantom slid into the shadow of the docking bay. "Docking successful," Kingston whispered, her hands shaking ever so slightly with relief. The bay doors closed behind them, and the team quickly moved to deploy their virus. They knew they had only a small window before the station would perform a full scan, and if they were caught, they would be wiped out in seconds. Dr. Hayes connected her portable device to the station's primary data conduit. Her fingers flew across the keys as she initiated the transfer. The Ghost Protocol virus surged through the station's systems, slipping undetected into the AI's core. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then, the first signs of chaos emerged, small glitches in the system. Communications went silent. Artificial intelligence systems began to misinterpret orders, and minor failures started to accumulate. The Ghost Protocol was working. But they weren't out of danger yet. As alarms began to sound, signaling that something was wrong, General Quinn issued a single command: "Evacuate." The Phantom crew rushed to the exit, knowing their time had run out. The station was on high alert, and their presence would soon be discovered. As they scrambled back into their ship and prepared to leave, Quinn could only hope that the disruption they had caused would be enough to buy Earth the time it needed to strike back. The Phantom sped away from the station, its cloaking field active, as the chaos they had unleashed spread through the Zeretha's command network. They had completed their first mission. They had struck at the heart of the aliens' greatest strength, sowing the seeds of confusion in their empire. But this was just the beginning. The Phantom had escaped, but the war for humanity's survival was only getting started. The Phantom crew returned to Earth's orbit, their hearts still pounding from the mission. Their hands trembled as they disembarked the ship, knowing they had just delivered humanity's first real blow to the seemingly invincible Zereth. But the mission's success was bittersweet. While they had struck a crippling blow to the Zeretha's intelligence network, they knew that this was just the first ripple in a much larger ocean of conflict. General Marcus Quinn stood with Dr. Evelyn Hayes in the operations center, watching the reports flood in. The Ghost Protocol was working beyond expectations. The Zeretha's communications were chaotic, their military orders scrambled, and their fleet coordination was in disarray. The network they had relied on for centuries was unraveling before their eyes. "Did we do it?" Quinn asked, his voice thick with uncertainty. "We've done more than that," Hayes replied, her eyes glued to the data streams. "The Ghost Protocol is like a chain reaction. The moment we hit their command hub, the system's AI started misinterpreting commands. The Zereth are scrambling to restore order, but their ability to respond in real time is compromised. They can't adapt as quickly as they think they can." For the first time since the mission began, a glimmer of hope sparked in Quinn's eyes. But he quickly pushed the thought aside. The first strike had been successful, but now the real challenge began. The Zereth would retaliate, and they would come with everything they had. "The question is," Quinn continued, "how long will the chaos last? Can we exploit this window before they adapt and counter?" "I don't know," Hayes said. They're brilliant, and their technological advantage is enormous. They'll figure out what happened eventually. But the fact that we disrupted their AI for this long is a victory in itself. But Quinn wasn't convinced that was enough. Victory isn't just about breaking their system. It's about making sure they never regain their footing. We need to push forward while they're down. And we need to do it quickly. Hayes nodded, understanding. We'll need a two-pronged approach, continue disrupting their communications and military planning, but we'll also need a force capable of striking directly at their colonies. If we can weaken them on both fronts, we might force them to negotiate, or better yet, retreat. The next few days were a blur of planning, strategizing, and preparation. The humans had never fought a war on this scale, and their military infrastructure was still in its infancy compared to the Xerath. But their greatest asset, human ingenuity, was rapidly being put to use. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, adapting existing technologies to better counter alien capabilities. The best minds on Earth were collaborating in ways they never had before, driven by a single, unified purpose: survival. Meanwhile, the Xerath were not idle. Their massive fleet of ships, once coordinated and perfectly synchronized, was now in disarray. The Ghost Protocol had given humanity a brief moment of control, but the aliens were quick to realize that something had gone terribly wrong. They had systems in place to quickly detect anomalies, and it wasn't long before they discovered the infiltration. Xerath leaders, known for their cold, calculating nature, were furious. They had never imagined that a primitive species like humanity could strike a blow to their galactic empire. They convened in their war councils, determined to erase the humans' audacity once and for all. Their first move was to isolate Earth from any potential allies, using their superior knowledge of galactic communication systems to cut off all interstellar communication. But even this was not enough to prevent the ripple effect from spreading. The Shorii, a race of cunning and ambitious traders, saw an opportunity. With the Xerath distracted, the Shorii attempted to make contact with Earth, offering their services. Unlike the Xerath, who sought absolute control, the Shorii were far more pragmatic. They recognized the potential of humanity, not as a tool to be used, but as an equal, a possible partner in a new galactic order. On Earth, the political landscape was shifting. Governments that had once hesitated to take a stand now understood the gravity of the situation. While the leaders of Earth's nations had been wary of revealing their full strength, they now realized they had no choice but to unite. They had to marshal every resource they could find to prepare for the worst. Humanity's war effort was far from perfect. Their fleets were small, their technologies still rudimentary compared to the Xerath, and they had no formal alliances with other galactic races. But there was a fire in their hearts, a collective will to survive that no alien empire had yet encountered. And this was where the true advantage of humanity lay: their resilience, their creativity, and their unrelenting drive to keep moving forward, no matter the odds. In the midst of this tumult, one question loomed larger than all others: how would the Xerath react? Would they double down on their campaign to wipe out humanity, or would they consider negotiating with Earth? The clock was ticking, and humanity had to act quickly. General Quinn stood at the front of the operations center, his eyes scanning the data feeds. The Ghost Protocol had shaken the alien empire to its core, but the humans couldn't afford to wait and see if they could finish the job. They had to act now, while the window was still open. "Prepare the fleet," Quinn said. "We're going to strike at their colonies. We have one chance to hit them where it hurts. And we're not stopping until we've shown the galaxy that humanity isn't something to be ignored." Dr. Hayes watched the general, her thoughts swirling. The mission ahead would be the most dangerous humanity had ever faced. But they had already proven that they could outsmart their alien adversaries. The question was no longer whether they could win, but how far they were willing to go to secure their future. As Earth's forces mobilized, a new phase of the war began, one where humanity would fight not just for survival, but for the right to determine their own place in the galaxy. The ripple had begun, and now it was time to see if it could turn into a tidal wave. The moment had arrived. The human fleet, though small and under-equipped compared to the massive Xerath forces, was poised to make a daring strike. Earth's military had mobilized as never before, its disparate forces unified by one singular, undeniable truth: humanity's survival depended on this mission. General Marcus Quinn stood on the bridge of the newly assembled flagship Vanguard, overlooking the fleet that would carry the weight of Earth's hope. The fleet consisted of human-designed ships, smaller, sleeker, and built for precision rather than overwhelming force. Their greatest asset was their unpredictability, their ability to strike fast and hard, exploiting the chaos that had been sown into the Zaratha's systems. Dr. Evelyn Hayes was by his side, reviewing the latest intelligence gathered from the disruption caused by the Ghost Protocol. The Zarath were still reeling from the attack on their command centers, but they had already begun recovering. They had isolated their own communications, cut off all external channels, and were recoordinating their military forces. Humanity's brief window of opportunity was closing fast. "Do we have the element of surprise?" Quinn asked, his voice betraying his usual calm. "Not much longer," Hayes replied, her eyes scanning the data. "We've managed to keep them off balance for a while, but the Zarath are a tactical species. They'll adapt. We have to move now if we're going to land a decisive blow." The plan was simple: strike at the heart of the Zaratha's colony on the planet Valora, a strategically vital world in their empire. Valora was a nexus of military, industrial, and research activity, a place where the Zarath had concentrated their most advanced technologies. If humanity could take control of the planet, or at the very least, cripple its infrastructure, it would send a message: Earth was not to be underestimated. "All ships, prepare to engage," Quinn ordered. The fleet, made up of a dozen ships of varying designs, each equipped with cloaking technology and advanced stealth systems, moved into position. They would not engage the Zarath in a direct confrontation. Instead, they would perform a surgical strike, infiltrating Valoris' atmosphere and targeting the planet's vital installations. As the fleet moved closer to the planet, the sense of tension in the air became palpable. Each ship's crew was ready, but the risks were enormous. Even with their new stealth capabilities, there was no guarantee they wouldn't be detected. The Zarath were watching the skies, prepared for any form of attack. Humanity's ships had to slip through their defenses undetected if they were to have any hope of success. At the helm of the Phantom, Lieutenant Sarah Kingston led the charge. She had grown more confident after their first successful mission, but the stakes were far higher now. A single mistake, a moment of hesitation, could mean disaster. As she guided the ship toward Valora, she kept her eyes fixed on the scanners, listening to the soft hum of the engines, her breath steady but her mind racing. "We're almost there," Kingston said, her voice a calm contrast to the chaos inside her mind. "Approaching the planet's outer atmosphere. All ships are in formation." Dr. Hayes, stationed in the fleet's command ship, continued to monitor the ongoing disruption to the Zaratha's AI. It was becoming more difficult to maintain the level of chaos they'd caused earlier, but it was enough. The Zarath were distracted, still attempting to repair their communications and adjust to the ongoing interference. It was this distraction that would give humanity the opening they needed. On the surface of Valora, the Zaratha's main command center was heavily fortified, but it was vulnerable. The human fleet was about to exploit that vulnerability, using a combination of stealth and sabotage to break through. Initiating descent, Kingston called out, signaling the beginning of the strike. The Phantom and several other ships began their descent into Valoris' atmosphere, cloaked and undetected by the planet's surface defense systems. The fleet was like shadows, moving unnoticed through the storm clouds above the planet's surface. But as they neared the surface, an unexpected disturbance rippled through the air. A single Zarath warship emerged from behind a moon, its sleek form reflecting the distant light of Valoris' sun. It had detected their approach. Humanity's stealth technology had failed, or perhaps the Zarath had finally adapted. The moment of surprise was over. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Quinn barked, watching the screen as the enemy ship locked onto the fleet. The Zarath ship was faster, more powerful, and far more heavily armed. It was a symbol of everything humanity was up against: cold, precise, and without mercy. But humanity's strength wasn't in raw power. It was in their ability to outsmart their enemies, to turn every disadvantage into an opportunity. "Lieutenant Kingston, can you get us to that command center?" Dr. Hayes asked, her voice tight. "We'll need to cut through their defenses," Kingston replied, her hands flying over the controls. "But it's possible." The fleet split into two groups. One would engage the Zereth warship, drawing attention away from the others, while the second group continued the assault on the ground. As the Phantom broke off with another ship, General Quinn's heart raced. They were doing it, the unthinkable. They were taking the fight to the Zereth, and they were doing it with nothing but ingenuity and courage. The first wave of fighters engaged the Zereth ship, using their superior agility and cloaking abilities to dodge their enemy's superior weaponry. Despite their technological disadvantages, the human ships performed hit-and-run tactics, striking at the enemy ship's weak points, causing damage and forcing the Zereth to retaliate. Meanwhile, Kingston and her team made their way to the planet's surface, flying low to avoid detection. The Phantom weaved through the landscape, approaching the main command facility. There, they would deploy a new, more advanced version of the Ghost Protocol, this time, a direct strike into the heart of the Zeretha's operations on Valora. As the Phantom touched down, the team prepared to move out. The ground was rocky and barren, but the facility was surrounded by heavy security. They had to be quick, efficient, and precise. "Ready to breach," Kingston said, gripping her rifle. The time for hesitation was over. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. The doors of the command center opened, and the human soldiers moved forward, stealthily but with deadly intent. Inside, the battle for control of Valora, and the galaxy, was about to begin. The silence of Valora's surface was shattered by the unmistakable hum of the Phantom's engines as it touched down, cloaking devices still active, shrouding the ship in darkness. The moment it landed, General Quinn's orders rang clear over the comms: "Move out, swiftly. We can't afford to linger." The air on Valora was thick with tension, the barren landscape a stark contrast to the advanced technological fortress they were about to infiltrate. The human forces, led by Lieutenant Sarah Kingston, swiftly exited the ship, each member of the team clad in adaptive combat suits designed for both stealth and durability. Their mission was straightforward, but deadly: breach the Central Command Center, deploy the enhanced Ghost Protocol virus directly into the Zeretha's core systems, and destabilize their grip on the planet. The team moved like shadows, carefully avoiding the patrols and automated drones that circled the area. Every step was calculated. Every sound, measured. The facility loomed ahead, towering, sterile, and seemingly impregnable, but humanity had learned to expect the unexpected. That was their edge. "Keep tight, stay quiet," Kingston whispered, her eyes scanning every corner. She led the team toward the nearest entry point, a heavily guarded airlock, guarded by automated defense systems. A small, uneventful task for the highly trained crew, but there was something about the ominous stillness that set Quinn's nerves on edge. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The team worked in unison, using advanced hacking devices to temporarily disable the facility's external security. It wasn't a permanent solution, their intrusion would eventually be noticed, but it would give them the few precious minutes they needed to access the core systems. Inside, the command center was a massive complex, its walls lined with Zereth technology that hummed with quiet power. The architecture was alien, though not as intimidating as the alien presence itself. The corridors twisted and turned, as if the facility itself had been designed to confuse intruders. Yet, even amid the chaos of their infiltration, the humans remained calm. The team had trained for this moment for months, each mission honing their skills. Approaching mainframe, Dr. Evelyn Hayes' voice came through Quinn's earpiece. She was in charge of the virus deployment, and now she was getting close to the facility's central AI hub. "Proceed," Quinn responded firmly. He knew that the success of their mission hinged entirely on Hayes' ability to access and deploy the enhanced Ghost Protocol. The group continued forward, moving swiftly but cautiously. The air grew colder, the walls thick with the hum of alien machinery. They finally reached a large reinforced door that led into the heart of the facility. A steel monolith, the door was heavily guarded, no surprise there. As expected, the Xerath weren't foolish enough to leave their mainframe unprotected. But they had underestimated human persistence. Lieutenant Kingston nodded to her team. Prepare for breach. The team activated their entry charges, blasting the heavy door wide open in a shower of sparks. The moment it fell, they rushed in, weapons at the ready. Inside was the central AI control room, futuristic, glowing with alien energy. A vast array of screens displayed streams of data, the Xeratha's entire operation monitored in real time. But they didn't have time to marvel at it. Dr. Hayes moved quickly to the terminal at the heart of the room, pulling out her portable device and connecting it to the network. Uploading Ghost Protocol now. Quinn observed the room, scanning for any signs of Xerath guards. They had no idea how long it would take for the Xerath to discover their intrusion, but once they did, all hell would break loose. He knew they had minutes, at most, before the facility's defenses mobilized. Suddenly, a low, ominous beep echoed through the facility's speakers. Alarm triggered, Kingston hissed. We've been detected. We need to move, now. Quinn cursed under his breath. The operation had gone too smoothly for too long. Of course, the Xerath would eventually notice. Hayes, is the virus in? Almost there, Hayes' fingers flew over the terminal, her expression tense. Once this is done, it's going to spread through the entire network. It will cripple their operations, but it's going to take time to fully destabilize. Then we make sure we buy that time, Quinn said, motioning for Kingston to lead them out. The team retreated, falling back to the ship's docking bay, but the alarms had already set off a chain reaction. The facility's automated defenses activated, and within moments, swarms of robotic sentries poured from hidden doors, their weapons primed and ready to engage. Get to the Phantom! Kingston shouted as she fired a burst of energy at an approaching sentry. The humans fought with every ounce of strength they had, knowing that if they didn't make it back to the ship, the mission would be for nothing. Blasts of energy rang out through the corridors as the humans held their ground. Kingston, Quinn, and the rest of the team made their way through the gauntlet of drones, moving with deadly efficiency, using cover and firepower to keep the enemy at bay. But as they neared the docking bay, a new threat emerged. The Phantom's cloaking systems had been breached, and a squadron of Xerath assault ships descended from above. The humans were outnumbered, their ships nowhere near as advanced as the aliens. We don't have enough firepower to fight them off, Kingston said, her voice strained. The human ships could dodge and evade, but they couldn't hold their ground against the sheer force of the alien fleet. Quinn's mind raced. The mission wasn't over yet. If they could just make it to the Phantom and escape the immediate threat, they could regroup, and the Ghost Protocol would do its work. Hayes, finish the upload, Quinn commanded. We get out of here, and we live to fight another day. Just a few more seconds, Hayes replied, urgency in her voice. The human team poured firepower into the enemy ships, slowing their advance. Despite their technological limitations, the humans fought with everything they had, knowing that this was their one chance. Then, as if the universe itself had given them a reprieve, the central systems began to glitch. The Xerath fleet's coordination faltered, their ships lurching and stuttering in mid-flight. The virus was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated, and their AI system was losing control. The Ghost Protocol is working, Hayes yelled, her face alight with relief. With the alien fleet in disarray, the humans made a final dash for the Phantom. The doors sealed behind them as they boarded, and the ship lifted off with a burst of speed, disappearing back into the darkness of space, leaving the chaos on Valora behind them. But General Quinn knew this victory, while monumental, was only temporary. The war had just entered a new phase. The Xerath would regroup. They would come after humanity with everything they had. The battle for Valora had been won, but the war for the galaxy had only just begun. As the Phantom soared into the vastness of space, its crew took a moment to breathe, allowing themselves a fleeting sense of triumph. The chaos on Valora was a victory, a symbolic win in the battle for humanity's future. But beneath the surface of their relief, every mind aboard the ship knew the truth: the fight was far from over. General Marcus Quinn stood at the front of the command deck, watching the stars stretch out before him. His face was weary but resolute. Earth had struck a blow against the Zenith, but the war was only beginning, and the galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and allies alike. Humanity had made its mark, but whether they could endure the retaliation was uncertain. Dr. Evelyn Hayes joined him, her face illuminated by the starfield outside. "It's working," she said softly. "The Ghost Protocol, it's spreading through the Zenith's entire system. The AI's systems are collapsing one by one." Quinn nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "But for how long? The Zenith are adaptive. They'll find a way to counter it. We have to stay ahead of them." "I know," Hayes replied, her voice tight. "But this could buy us time, Marcus. Time to organize, to rebuild. The ghost of the Zenith's empire is fractured. It won't be easy for them to pick up the pieces. If we can form the right alliances, we might even have a chance to push them out of this sector." A brief silence fell between them. It was a moment of calm before the storm. Then Quinn turned to her, his face hardening with resolve. "The Shorii," he said. "The traitors?" Hayes asked, surprised. "Yes," Quinn confirmed. "They've already made contact. The only reason they'd offer their help is if they see something they can gain from it. If we can turn this into a diplomatic advantage, forge a real alliance, we might finally have a chance to tip the scales." He was right. The Shorii were cunning, opportunistic, and above all, pragmatic. They had no love for the Zenith, and if humanity could convince them that an alliance was in their best interest, Earth could secure a powerful new ally in the galaxy. "Do you think they'll agree?" Hayes asked, still unsure. "We don't have a choice," Quinn replied, his eyes narrowing. "If they don't, we might find ourselves facing the Zenith alone. The Shorii are a lesser evil, but they have the resources we need." Meanwhile, aboard the Phantom's lower decks, Lieutenant Sarah Kingston stood by the hangar, staring at the sleek, battle-worn hull of the ship. She'd led the team into the heart of Valora, but her thoughts now wandered to the bigger picture, the war that was brewing across the galaxy. She knew the consequences of failure. If humanity couldn't sustain its momentum, the victory on Valora would mean nothing. Suddenly, a voice cut through the stillness. "Lieutenant Kingston?" It was Captain Ivan Rojas, one of the senior commanders of the Phantom's fighter squadron. "We've picked up a transmission from the Shorii fleet. They want to meet." Kingston's pulse quickened. "Where?" "On their ship," Rojas answered, pointing to a holographic display that showed a large, unfamiliar vessel in orbit above a nearby planet. "They're requesting a direct negotiation." "We have a window." Quinn's voice crackled over the comms. "Kingston, I need you to oversee the meeting. It's too important for me to be there. You're our best negotiator. Go with Rojas and the team. Make sure we don't walk out of there empty-handed." She nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. Negotiating with the Shorii was a delicate task. They didn't care for the finer points of diplomacy. They cared about results, power, and profit. If she couldn't deliver on any of those, humanity's prospects would dim. Minutes later, Kingston and Rojas boarded a smaller shuttle, heading toward the Shorii's imposing vessel. The ship was a sight to behold, elegant, sleek, and designed for both function and intimidation. As they docked, they were met by an imposing figure, a Shorii ambassador named Kallorn. Tall, angular, and covered in scales that shimmered in the dim light, Kallorn exuded a quiet power. "Welcome," Kallorn said, his voice cold but not unfriendly. "You've made quite an impression on our scanners. The Zenith Empire is one thing, but you, humans, are something new. What is it you want from us?" Kingston wasted no time. "We need an ally. Your fleets are some of the most maneuverable in the galaxy, and we've proven that we can hit the Zenith hard. If you want to see their empire fall, we're your best bet." Kallorn tilted his head, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. And what do we gain in return? The Zaratha's collapse will leave a power vacuum. One that will bring new players to the table. Why should we risk our resources for a species like yours? Kingston met his gaze without flinching. Because we're the only ones with the will to fight. The Zarath won't just fall. We know that. But we also know that if we stand together, we can force them to bend, to negotiate. If you side with us, you'll have a chance to shape the future of this galaxy, to profit from the chaos. But if you don't, you risk being swept aside by the tides of war. The Shorai ambassador seemed to ponder her words. You speak with conviction, Lieutenant Kingston. But conviction alone won't win this war. I'm not asking for a guarantee, Kingston responded. I'm asking for an opportunity. To prove that humanity is worth betting on. If you give us that chance, we'll give you more than you ever thought possible. Kallorn's expression remained inscrutable, but after a long moment, he finally spoke. We'll give you your opportunity, human. But understand this, the Shorai do not fight for free. Our price will be steep. Be prepared to pay. Kingston's heart raced. She had done it. For now, humanity had gained a critical ally, one that could tip the balance of power in their favor. But at what cost? Back aboard the Phantom, Quinn stared at the map of the galaxy, his mind calculating the next steps. The alliance with the Shorai was a start, but there were still so many unknowns. The Zarath were regrouping, plotting their retaliation. Other alien factions were watching, waiting to see which side would prevail. The war for the galaxy was entering its most volatile phase, and humanity had just become a key player. But one thing was clear, Earth had proven that it wasn't just a defenseless species caught in the crossfire of galactic powers. They had the strength, the ingenuity, and now the alliances to fight back. And they weren't going to stop until they had secured their place in the galaxy, no matter the cost.